These are two Zonophone Parlors. They look quite a bit different because they straddle two different eras. In the 1900 to about 1903 era, Zonophone, or Universal Talking Machine Company, was making their own in-house designs. But at some point during that era, Eldridge Johnson, the owner of Victor Talking Machine Company, ended up buying the Universal Talking Machine Company. And so Zonophone phonographs ended up getting a little bit more of the influence of Eldridge Johnson and Victor designs. So this one predates any Victor influence, and this one is a little later. This was probably around 1904, 1905 when this was made, and this one was made around 1901, 1902 era. So this is the front mount era where the horn sticks out like this, as opposed to the later back mount era, which was like that. The first few years before there was a Victor influence, they were really quite well made, and then it kind of got a little bit worse as the Victor influence took over. I think Eldridge Johnson basically saw this as his budget line of machines, and eventually he phased it out completely because it was sort of competition for Victor. When we come in close, you'll see some of the details. They're a little bit different than the Victor product. This one has the usual early reproducer and the horn on it. This looks to me to be a reproduction horn, but it is very similar to what would have been on it originally. So let's come in and take a look at this machine, and then we're going to talk about this one, which I absolutely love, especially because of this very unusual horn. So let's talk about this one close, and then we're going to talk about this really great looking machine here too. So this is the early parlor, and you can see the reproducer. And that's the type of elbow that was on the Zonophones. And the cranks are horizontal instead of vertical. That was a nice improvement on phonograph design. And I like their cranks. They're kind of a nice shape, a little unusual. And their brakes are also a bit unusual. And a lot of things on this machine I really like. I'm a big fan of Zonophone, and I think they get a bad reputation. People aren't as interested in collecting them because of the later years when they weren't made so well. And these are Zonophone records. We're going to play one of those on it. Let's look at the decal. This later parlor didn't always come with this unusual horn. Look at that though. It's just freaking beautiful. It's actually quite heavy, and it's got a little bit of flexibility to it, very little. And I'm not even sure what this is made out of. It's quite heavy. It could be a fiber horn. I've seen somewhere where it was listed as a gumwood horn, so I'm not entirely sure. If you know, leave a comment and we'll see if we can tell other people what's going on. But either way, it's a beautiful horn. The machine's very nice. I like the fact that the crank is on the front. It makes it easier to crank than when it's on the side, maybe. I'm going to bring you in close and take a look at this. The reproducer definitely shows the influence of Victor. I mean, it looks exactly like an exhibition reproducer, but it does have the Universal Talking Machine or Zonophone name on it, and we'll see that when we come close up. The only thing on this machine that I think is a big problem is this tone arm. Yes, later, Zonophones or Universal Talking Machine Company machines had a tapered tone arm, just like the Victor, because of the Victor influence, and they were allowed to do that because Eldridge Johnson allowed that because he owned the patents to the tapered tone arm. But it didn't look like this, the tapered tone arm they had. What I think has happened here is that tone arm got broken and lost. And so someone did a pretty decent job of splicing in a Victor tone arm into the Zonophone part here. And so it looks almost original, but the Zonophone tone arm would have just been a straight taper with a bend and the reproducer on it. Didn't have this U-shaped tube that was reserved for the Victor products. So that's kind of a problem. I wish we could find the correct tone arm for this, but I think it disappeared years ago. So let's come in close and take a look. All right, let's take a good look at this horn. You can see some age cracking. It's beautiful. I love this color. Look at that. There's the tone arm. Yeah, that's a Victor thing. But if we look at the reproducer, I'll get to that in a second. Oh, Zonophones have the greatest decals. There's the back bracket. And strangely enough, it has the Parlor decal on the back. What's really surprising is these cases look almost identical, but I measured them and they're off a little bit. One of them's just a little bit bigger than the other one. I don't know why they did that. Seems unusual. Let's take a look at the reproducer. Yeah, it looks just like an exhibition. So I took the turntable off the early Parlor, and you can see the plate and the crank coming out of it there. And then I took the turntable off the later one. Look at that. Look what I found there. Oh, I love these Zonophones. So cool. Fortunately, it's hidden by the turntable. Another difference between the two machines is this one, well, it's missing it. There's a little pin in there on a spring that pops up, and it fits into a dimple in the record, and it keeps the record from slipping. I don't know if it was absolutely necessary. And on this one, it doesn't have that dimple, and I'm not going to take this record off because there's replacement felt on it, and I think it looks horrible. And here are some of the records. And on the back, you see there a little dimple. Okay, let's hear one. Okay. Wow, that is loud.
Down upon the Mississippi, in the good old days of yore, oh, that man was not so dippy as he has been since the war. All day long he'd hold a cotton, just as happy as a king.
Holy shite, that was loud. You can't tell from the video because I'm going to edit that down a little bit because it was just blasting so loud. But this is an early record and this is an original reproducer. And wow, this thing in here was really loud. One of the loudest early phonographs I've ever heard. It was just amazing. And I think it's just a combination of a good record, a reproducer that may have been rebuilt, and the gasket's really, really rubbery and flexible. And I don't know if this horn had anything to do with it, but that was amazing. So I hope you like these two early Parlor Universal Talking Machine Zonophones.